Of the show for today. We're talking to Mr. Darby and Ms. Parham, and the subject is the United States Census of 2010. Now, let's sort of pick up where we left off the last segment, but also let me try to bring in some of the information that I only recently learned, and that is filling out the census itself. Well, let's speak to that issue about filling out the census. That is, this form comes to your house, and then what's the next step? I mean, there are four members in that family.
If there are 4 members in the household that sleeps in the house, then 4 forms ought to be filled out. That include the children.
So every person in that household has to fill out a form.
Yes.
Well, now, when these forms come, do they have the number of forms for that? So if in my household, with 5 persons in there, I would get a list, a package with 5 forms.
It's not 5, but in the booklet,
mean, with the
yeah, there's a number of forms, and all of them are the same.
Same form.
But if you don't have enough forms, there are going to be counted sites and question and answer sites all over Davidson County where you can go pick up additional forms to fill out. But in the past, they talk about that most children are not counted. And when they're not counted, that's part of the population not being counted. So the forms are for everybody that lives in a particular household.
And the parents or the guardians or whoever will be responsible for helping the people who might not be able to fill those forms out to fill them out. Yes. Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
Is that they want every person? Well, I think you ought to re-emphasize that, because I didn't know that. I thought that, now that is different, I believe, from the old system of last year. I mean, the last time in 2000 did we count everybody? Did everybody have to fill out one of those forms?
Everybody was supposed to be counted. But see, that was one of the errors with it. Everybody was not counted. So the emphasis this time is put on telling people that everybody that lives in a particular household must fill out that form.
Yes. You see, and whether they are able to fill it out or not, when the form goes back in, some information relative to that particular individual ought to be a part of that package.
Yes.
Is that what we're saying?
That's what we're saying.
Well, see, then I couldn't just have my wife to fill out our census as we do our income tax, for example.
No.
See, I think that ought to be stressed. I think a lot of folks might be under the impression that when they get that one form, and I would imagine that if I were to see that, I would simply say that that's just a duplication of the other forms, and fill out one form and think that's all I have to fill out without filling out the form for everybody else.
Okay. The form.
Speak to that.
Okay. The form has slots for every person in the household. One form will come to the household, but if the audience could see this would cover the household owner. But on the next page, they would fill it out for their children, their husband. There's a slot for the number of people in the house for them to add them on the list, to include them, to make sure they count everyone in their household. The Census Bureau counts everybody where they sleep the most. They must fill the form out immediately and send it back in. But if they do not fill the form out by May the 1st, someone from the Census Bureau will come to their house and knock on the door and assist them in filling the form out. The Census Bureau is really saying, this is your money. We want to give you back to the city your money. So our being here is to say, please fill out the form so you can bring monies back into your community for schools, for Medicaid, for WIC, for senior citizens, for hospitals, for the libraries. This is how they get monies to operate these entities. And if they don't fill it out, then it will show that it has less population, then it'll be less money to come back into the community for the operations. And that's where the mayors get a lot of their money. They put it into a general fund, as Neil said, and then they look at the needs of the community, and it's based on the population count. And a lot of grant dollars, when companies go after grant money, it's based on the population. When businesses decide to move into a community, they base it on population, whether or not they'll move here. So it is so important that everyone fill that form out. It's safe, it's easy, and it's confidential. There's no need to fear it, and most people do not understand when the form comes in the mail and they have trashed it, and so we want them to fill it out, because if they get rid of it, someone will knock on the door after May the 1st. And as Neil said, we are planning a neighborhood march on April the 10th to say march to the mailbox and mail the forms back in, because we need the money in our communities.
And so this is a real serious kind of situation. Now, I think you indicated earlier that in 2000 that only 67%